Act 1. The Gift of Less. There's a thing that happens in ultramarathon training that nobody warns you about. You spend weeks grinding, stacking miles, gaining elevation, pushing your body further than it's comfortable going. And then, suddenly, your coach hands you a week that asks less. Not nothing, just less. Week 9 is that week. After 2 or 3 weeks of serious base building, big climbs, long efforts, the kind of training that leaves you wondering at bedtime whether your legs belong to you, Week 9 is a recovery week. The plan calls for 106 kilometers and 1,500 meters of climbing across 6 days with Sunday off, which, for a man preparing to run 250 miles through the mountains of Arizona, qualifies as a rest. Paul James Johnson, trial attorney, ultramarathon runner, 7 weeks out from the start line of the Cocodona 250. He's not complaining. Tuesday, March 17, St. Patrick's Day. He wore green, a green sun shirt to honor the day, a small ritual in the Sonoran Desert, where the only shamrocks are the ones you bring with you. The plan said 16 moderate kilometers. He delivered 16.1, essentially exact. All of it flat, just 25 meters of gain over the whole run, and out and back on the Maricopa Trail near Happy Valley Road. There was a dog. 2 men with an unleashed dog on the trail. The dog came at him the way dogs do when they've decided you're worth investigating. One of the men said it wouldn't bite. Friendly dog. You never know, Paul said later. But it's one of those things out in the desert in Arizona. People feel like they can let their dogs run loose, even when they see someone on foot coming at them. They don't take any effort to control the dog. He noted, without malice, that a lot of these folks aren't Arizona natives, transplants from somewhere else, still learning how things work out here, or maybe not learning. 2 days done, 33.67 kilometers on the legs, 428 meters of climbing. The recovery week was well underway. Act 2, the Arizona Sip. Every long training week has a centerpiece, one run that defines the week, the one you'll still be thinking about on race day. In week 9, that run is Friday. But to understand Friday, you need to understand something Paul has been thinking about for years. A philosophy he's developed on the long, dry, exposed stretches of desert running that has no official name except the one he gave it. He calls it the Arizona Sip. The concept is simple, and it isn't. When you're out in the Sonoran Desert, no shade, saguaro cactus dotting the landscape, the sun pressing down like a hand on the top of your head, you have to think about water differently than you do anywhere else. In Michigan, where Paul also trains, water is everywhere. The state is surrounded by the Great Lakes. You can drink freely, deeply, without calculation. You can take what he calls the Michigan Gulp. Out here, you can't. So instead of the Michigan Gulp, Paul explained, you take the Arizona Sip. With my flask and my running vest, I simply take a sip, enough to partially fill my mouth, enough that my tongue is wet. I hold that water there for a while. That loosens up the tongue, and then after a while, you swallow it, which of course brings the hydration into the body. It's not just rationing, it's a relationship with water, a mindful, deliberate practice for staying alive and moving in a landscape that will take what you don't protect. The Apache. The philosophy connects to something Paul has been thinking about since long before this run, a technique practiced by indigenous peoples of the American Southwest, right here in this desert. Apache boys were trained for war from boyhood, and one of the foundational drills was this. A boy was given one mouthful of water, told not to swallow it, and sent on a run. The protocol had a built-in proof of completion. Warriors filled their mouths at a stream, ran to the top of the nearest mountain and back, then spit the water at their trainer's feet. Evidence they had maintained nasal breathing throughout. The purpose was dual. It conserved a water resource in terrain where you might run for miles without finding more. And it did something more profound. With your mouth full of water, you can only breathe through your nose. And nose breathing changes everything. It slows the respiratory cycle, engages the diaphragm, builds resistance to the CO2 buildup that sends panic signals to the brain during hard exertion. It regulates pace automatically. It keeps you from burning too hot. These weren't recreational runners. Apache warriors were known to cover 70 or more miles a day across the same brutal desert terrain Paul trains on now. Geronimo, at age 62, escaped from a reservation and ran more than 90 miles in less than 24 hours. The United States cavalry on horseback could not catch him. The cavalry horses had to be rested and watered every 40 miles. The Apache did not. The principle, nasal breathing as the foundation of endurance, turns out to be nearly universal. The Raramuri of Mexico's Copper Canyon, the most celebrated distance runners in the world, run hundreds of miles in sandals made of tire rubber, fueled by ground corn and water, breathing through their noses. In the 1800s, the painter and explorer George Catlin spent years living among plains tribes. He documented mothers who carefully closed their babies' mouths after nursing and stood over sleeping infants at night to pinch their lips shut if they opened. Nose breathing, these tribes told him, kept the body strong. Mouth breathing sapped it. Modern exercise science has caught up. Nasal breathing strengthens respiratory muscles, trains CO2 tolerance, and activates the parasympathetic nervous system, the rest and digest state that keeps the body from burning itself down under prolonged stress. It is, in other words, exactly what you need on a 32-kilometer run through the Sonoran Desert in 95-degree heat. Chris Martinez, the Paint Creek Trail. He tested this concept once on the Paint Creek Trail in Michigan with a group of running friends, 5 or 6 of them moving at an 8.5-minute pace. The challenge? Who could hold water in their mouth for 1 full mile? Chris Martinez, good friend, strong runner, California native, took a mouthful of water at the Dutton Road crossing and set out for Tinkin Road, just over a mile away. The other runners spent that mile doing everything they could to make him laugh, telling jokes, heckling, working every angle. He made it, and at the finish, he turned and deliberately spit the water out directly onto one of the guys who'd been giving him the most grief. He said it was very, very difficult mentally, Paul recalled, to focus, to stay on track. Welcome to the Arizona Sip. Friday, March 20. The plan called for 32 kilometers with 900 meters of climbing. He hit the distance almost exactly, 32.02 kilometers. The elevation came in at 649 meters, about 250 meters short of target. The Black Canyon Trail through the southern Sonoran Desert is exposed and technical, but it doesn't have the relentless vertical that generates big elevation numbers. In this heat, 649 meters over 6 hours and 8 minutes on that ground was its own kind of achievement. Up at 4 in the morning, on the road by 5, at the trailhead before 5:40. Solomon running vest, 1 liter of water in the front, 4 quarter-liter flasks in the back. Black Norda 001 trail shoes. He was on the trail before 6. Temperature mid-70s. Not cool, but dry. And dry changes everything. The headlamp lasted 4 to 5 kilometers. Then the sky caught up with the sun. He switched it off. The turnaround, 16 kilometers out, deep in the southern section of the Black Canyon Trail, running through open Sonoran Desert, where the saguaro are tall and healthy, and the shade they offer is essentially nothing. Pop-Tart around kilometer 8, Pro Bar just before the turnaround. On the way back, the heat found him. By the final 12 kilometers, the temperature was in the mid to upper 90s, exposed, no cover. The Arizona sip was working, but the body was in a conversation with the heat that had no easy resolution. Around 12 to 14 kilometers from the finish, he pulled out his buff and soaked it, kept it wet around his neck, used the quarter-liter flasks for cooling, not just drinking, pressing the wet cloth to his face, to his head. A breeze was still coming in from the north. The evaporative effect was real. You could feel it working. The focus was 1 kilometer at a time, he said. Keep this train moving. Even if it doesn't move quite as fast as it would in cooler conditions, if we're moving, we're getting closer. And that strategy helped. He crossed paths with 2 cyclists, both fully covered against the sun. Around kilometer 26, a pickup truck, a high-clearance rig that ferries tourists out to see the wild burros. The driver was out photographing a cactus. They talked. Paul had seen the burros twice, the same herd probably. He'd also passed 3 or 4 longhorn steers. Skittish, wanted nothing to do with him. The driver's parting advice: make sure you drink more than you think you need. Paul smiled. He'd been doing the opposite and surviving just fine. The bathrooms at the trailhead were closed, out of order. He climbed into the Ford Expedition, cranked the AC, and drove directly to the McDonald's at 4 Corners. A large milkshake, a McFlurry, a large Coke. He ate the ice cream on the drive home, finished the milkshake before he got out of the car, brought the Coke inside. Then he lay down on the floor and took a nap. And somewhere out there on that trail, he could see the Bradshaw Mountains on the horizon, Tower Mountain rising from the south side. That same peak will be visible on day 1 of the Cocodona 250. He won't summit it, but it will be there, watching. Act 3, The Sundial and the Owl. Wednesday, March 18. The plan said 10 recovery kilometers. He ran 10.01. Paloma Community Park off Lake Pleasant Parkway, 7:15 in the morning, clear blue sky, sun already working, forecast high for the day, 100 degrees. He ran the first 3 or 4 kilometers up, 194 meters of climbing packed into the front half, then descended and finished on the flats. The elevation wasn't in the plan, but Paloma Community Park doesn't negotiate. He wore the Adidas Terex, a super shoe with what he believes is a carbon plate. Out on the trails, on the flats, he could feel the spring of it. 100 degrees by afternoon, unseasonably warm for March. The rest of the week would look the same. Thursday, March 19. The plan said 13, easy. He ran 13.71, nearly all of it on flat pavement, just 86 meters of gain, consistent with the easy prescription. On Thursday mornings, the ISI Men's Ministry holds a Bible study at the Media Club inside the Trilogy complex. Paul ran to it, 3 to 3.5 kilometers from the house, arriving at 7, then kept moving. Another 10.5 kilometers on the Discovery Trail after the meeting. At the north end of the trail, there is a working sundial, an elevated stone instrument you can actually use. Paul stood on the month of March. His shadow fell across the dial at approximately the 8:30 mark. The sun doesn't lie. The Phoenix area set an all-time record that day, 107 degrees, the earliest in the year that temperature has ever been recorded for March 19th. The body is adapting to the heat, whether it wants to or not. Saturday, March 21, the plan called for 19 kilometers with 600 meters of climbing. The route to the ISI meeting and back came in at 21.2 kilometers, 2 kilometers over, and with just 88 meters of gain, the elevation target was never going to happen on flat suburban roads and trails. Some weeks the terrain gives you what the plan asks for. Some weeks the route has other ideas. He left the house at 5:30 in the morning. Dark, about 70 degrees, stars still up. And as he stepped outside, he heard it, the hooting of a great horned owl. It's worth stopping here for a moment because this is not a small thing. The great horned owl, also called the tiger owl, is the apex predator of the desert night. 3 to 4 pounds, standing up to 2 feet tall, wingspan up to 5 feet across. Its eyes are nearly the size of a human's, built to pull in light from near total darkness. Its ears are asymmetrical, slightly offset on either side of the skull, so the owl can triangulate the precise location of a sound in 3 dimensions: direction, distance, and elevation simultaneously. That facial disc, that flat bowl of feathers framing the face, acts like a parabolic dish funneling sound toward those offset ears. And its flight feathers are so fine, so soft, almost like polar fleece to the touch, that its wing beats are acoustically invisible. It is the most perfectly engineered hunting instrument the desert produces. It closes its talons with 500 pounds per square inch of force. A human squeezing with everything they have generates maybe 150. What it eats is the measure of what it is. More than 200 mammal species, more than 300 bird species, rabbits, skunks, snakes, lizards, other raptors. It is the only owl known to regularly prey on skunks, likely because it has almost no sense of smell. In the Sonoran Desert, it stays year-round, holds its territory for life, and is the only desert owl that actually hoots. So what Paul heard that morning was unmistakable. The timing matters too. 5:30 in the morning is the tail end of the great horned owl's working night. It prefers low light to total darkness, most active at dusk, and again in that last window before dawn. To hear one calling at that hour is to catch it at the height of its world, still alert, still hunting. The desert not yet surrendered to the sun. On this land, among the peoples who have lived here for centuries, the great horned owl has never been a simple bird. The Apache believed a hooting owl portended death. Historical records describe detachments of Apache scouts who refused to fight after hearing one call nearby. The Navajo still delay journeys if an owl appears near the home. The Odom, whose ancestral territory covers much of this valley, hold a more layered view. Associations with death and illness, yes, but also with healing, a warning that can be helpful if you know how to listen. The Hopi to the north venerate it as a protector. Some tribes saw it as the returned soul of a brave warrior. Others hooted like owls as a war cry going into battle. The point is that for thousands of years, on this exact ground, no one who heard a great horned owl call before a long journey treated it as background noise. "I love the great horned owl," Paul said, "and its presence in our community." He took it as a good sign. He usually does. He ran the 6+ miles to the ISI Saturday morning meeting location near the corner of Lake Pleasant Road and Happy Valley Road, arriving as the first light opened on the eastern horizon. After the meeting, he turned around and ran most of the same route back. By the time he was heading home, the temperature had climbed into the low 90s. 21.2 kilometers total. A solid finish to a recovery week that asked just enough. Week 9 is behind him now. The numbers tell their own story. The plan asked for 106 kilometers and 1,500 meters of climbing. He delivered 110.61 kilometers and 1,445 meters, 4.5 kilometers over on distance, 55 meters under on elevation. The legs kept wanting to go a little further. The terrain kept delivering a little less vertical than the plan assumed. Both of those things, in their own way, are fine. The recovery week did what recovery weeks are supposed to do. It let the body consolidate the work, absorb the miles, and come up for air before the next push. 7 weeks to the Cocodona 250. The heat is already here, months before the calendar says it should be. The desert is offering a preview of what May will bring, but he knows how to sip. He knows how to hold water in his mouth and breathe through his nose and keep the train moving, 1 kilometer at a time, until the finish finds him. The owl said so.